Hey everyone, in today's video I'll be going over a really broken build that does a crazy amount of damage stupidly fast. The best thing about it is it's amazing in PvP fights and in PvE. Don't forget to subscribe for more weekly content. I also have a Discord set up for anyone looking for more people to play with. The link to that and other Elden Ring related videos will be in the description down below. Alright, now let's dive into this busted build, starting off with the weapons. In our main hand, I'm holding the Lordsworn Straight Sword with the Quickstep Ash of War. This gives us a little dash you can do that basically acts as a faster roll, making it nice for dodging attacks and then counter-attacking. It only costs 3 mana as well, so this is really nice in PvP fights, complementing our attack speed with some maneuverability. Another backup Ash of War would be Bloodhound Step. It works in the exact same way, but you dash a lot farther and it consumes just a little bit more mana. But Quickstep is the best because we want to stay close at all times with our straight swords that don't have a lot of range. Also, we're using the bleed variation, and with this, our weapon passively has 113 blood loss buildup. 113 blood loss! On a straight sword, this should not be a thing. Now, for our other hand, I'm using the broadsword, which is the same thing as the Lordsworn sword. Bit of a tongue twister. This has a bit more damage though. With the Ash of War, I'm using Seppuku, which makes you stab yourself to place a bleed effect on your sword. But wait, there's more. I also have the bleed variation on this as well. So with this sword, it has 113 blood loss buildup, plus however much extra from Seppuku's Ash of War. What I'm saying is, we can proc a blood loss in enemies with 1 to 2 hits off the swords. These are straight swords as well, so they can swing pretty fast. Another really great thing about this setup is when you proc a bleed buildup in your target, they become staggered for a second or two. So after they take a huge amount of damage from blood loss, you can follow up for another attack, usually ending the fight right there and then with a huge burst of damage. Those two weapons are what's going to do all of the damage for us, but there's still a little bit more to it. I also use a Sacred Seal with the spell Flame Grant Me Strength. This gives me a 20% weapon damage buff when activated, so I like to use this before big fights like bosses or PvP fights. With the armor, we can get another 10% increased damage, and for that, we'll need the white mask. How it works is we just have to inflict a blood loss in our target for the buff to activate. Looking back at our swords having 113 blood loss buildup, this won't be difficult at all. Next is the Flask of Wondrous Physic. I'm using the Strength and Dexterity Crystal Tiers that give me an extra 10 levels. But honestly, you can use whatever tiers you feel like would work better for your playstyle, just because they're not crazy important with this setup. Lastly, I'll go over the talismans, then where you can find all this gear and the stats required for this setup. The talismans are pretty much the same as one of my other recent setups using katanas instead. If you like a good and fun katana build, I'd recommend checking that out afterwards. But anyways, the first talisman is the Winged Sword, raising attack power with successive attacks. Again, we have 2 straight swords that can attack pretty quickly, so stacking this buff up won't be an issue at all. The second talisman is the Lord of Blood's Exultation, giving us a 20% increased damage whenever blood loss occurs around us. So it's very similar to the white mask. A nice little bonus to this is when we use the Ash of War Seppuku, it activates this talisman right away for us, so we don't have to wait to get that 20% extra damage at all. We can come right out of the gate at full power. Also, when we proc a blood loss in our opponents or bosses, it just refreshes the duration for us. The third talisman is Millicent's Prothesis, doing the exact same thing as the Winged Sword talisman, increasing our damage with successive attacks. But it also increases our dex by 5 levels as well, so we get a nice little 2-for-1 special with this. With the last talisman, I went with Star Scourge Heirloom, which increases my strength by 5 levels, also increasing my damage by a little bit. There's not really another talisman I could find that works amazingly well with this setup, so this kind of works as like a free talisman spot. For how we're going to maximize the damage is really easy. First, use the Flask of Wondrous Physic. That's going to increase our dex and strength by 10 levels for 3 minutes. Then use the spell Flame Grant Me Strength for a 20% increased damage, and lastly, Seppuku. That'll give our weapon a stronger bleed buildup and activate the talisman Lord of Blood's Exaltation for a 20% damage buff. With all of this going on, the damage we can pump out in PvP fights and boss fights is going to be really nice. Seeing chunks of health disappear with our fast bleed buildup, and our weapon's decent physical damage with really good speed. Now I'll go over where you can find all of these items, starting off with the broadsword. First, you'll want to reach the first step resting place. From here, you'll head west towards the edge of the cliff. You'll then make your way down and find a merchant that's sitting underneath this collapsed structure. Then you can buy it from him for 1800 runes. The Ash of War Seppuku is located near the Freezing Lake resting place in the mountaintops of the Giants area. From here, you'll want to ride your horse to the blue marker I have set in the map. Here, you'll find an invisible scarab that you'll have to kill for it to drop the Seppuku Ash of War. Don't worry, it's not completely invisible. It leaves behind a trail that you'll be able to see very easily. To get the Lordsworn Sword, you'll have to farm it at the Gatefront Ruins. The closest resting place is the Gatefront. The enemies are pretty weak here, so it won't take you too long. For the Quickstep Ash of War, you'll want to reach the War Master's Shack. There should be a night guy standing here that will sell it to you. If he's not here, then he will be located at the Volcano Manor. The White Mask is rewarded after killing an invader NPC that is located underground in Sophia's River. The closest resting place is the Palace Approach the Ledge. From here, you just run down, then to the left, and into the Lake of Blood. The NPC will invade you in this area, and all you have to do is just kill it. With the Flask of Wondrous Physic, the Dexterity Crystal can be found in the Liornia Lake on top of a small hill. The Strength Crystal Knot is located near the Stormhill Shack resting place. From here, you just head up the hill and you'll find it resting inside of a stone bowl. To get the incantation Flame Grant Me Strength, you'll want to reach Fort Gale North resting place. From here, you'll head south towards Fort Gale, where you'll have to get behind the castle and drop down to pick up the spell. To get the Winged Sword Talisman, it can be rewarded after defeating the boss that's found in the Stillwater Cave. The Lord of Blood's Exhalation can be found in Lyondell's Catacombs, where you'll have to solve a puzzle and then defeat a boss for it to drop it. To get Millicent's Prothesis, you'll need to complete the Millicent's questline, which goes hand in hand with Gowry's quest. This can be started by talking to Millicent that's located at the Church of the Plagued. The Star Scourge Talisman can be found inside of Fort Gale on the upper levels. It'll be in a chest underneath the tent. Now I'll go over the minimum stats required for this build to work. You will need at least 10 strength, 10 dex, and 15 faith. But to get a lot of bleed on the swords, you'll want to focus most of your stat points into Arcane. That's everything for today's video. I'd like to give a big thanks to the members of my channel for supporting me on my videos and the future ones to come. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.